Now, the Don mouthing off with Mike might get tired of reading this, but I don't, because I'm all about us covering our butts, and our butts will remain covered right here. So, warning, the views and beliefs in the following program does not represent the views of Boom Broadcasting. We give full creative control to our creators and do not, I repeat, do not believe in cancel culture, because like I said last week, it's an orchestrated plan by the man, and that's another story for another time. So viewer discretion is advised.
Can't fall off, now they holler he'll turn, thinking I'ma sell out, talking just to feel heard. I never listen, although they say it's strictly.
Welcome back to Quick Hits. I'm your host, Shannon Smith. With August coming to a close, the sports world is experiencing a facelift. With Major League Baseball's playoff picture coming into fruition, men's and women's basketball coming back into the news after a sensational Olympic run, I get to talk more wrestling. Well, maybe everything hasn't changed, but the most obvious piece of news is the return of America's most popular sport, football. And we here at Boom Broadcasting will be covering a whole lot of it. Of course, I'll be covering college and pro football on Quick Hits. Carson Williams has a Green Bay Packer podcast that's coming real soon called The Lombardi Party. Sean Lucas is covering high school football in the Piedmont Triad of the great state of North Carolina on the Grit and Grind podcast. And Michael Davis will be covering those god-awful Dallas Cowboys on his Dad and the Boys podcast that he hosts with his dad Mac. So we have it covered. No matter what football you watch, high school, college, pros, come to Boom Broadcasting. We'll make sure that your football is being covered. But we got a lot to cover here today. So with that being said, let's start the show.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. I don't care if I ever get back, for it's root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame, for it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. You're out!
Shout out to Major League Baseball for bringing back Players Weekend after it being laying dormant for a few years. It was a lot of fun bringing that back. You know, baseball, to me, of all the 4 professional sports in America, baseball to me reminds me of that sport where it's more geared towards the family, geared towards the community. You know, back in the days, like, you know, the 1900s and things of that nature, from the baseball fields of that time, families would go and watch baseball. It'd be a tradition for them to go to the ball fields and watch baseball. From the Negro Leagues to Major League Baseball, and then when baseball integrated, it still is the same thing. You know, I always look at minor league games a lot, because minor league baseball is like so family oriented. You have nights where they set aside for family nights, you know, and they have discounts for kids. It's amazing. If you've never been to a minor league baseball game, go to one. I've been to a good bit of them here in the state of North Carolina. We've got a good bit of teams. I haven't been to all of them, and I want to, but a lot of those minor league games are geared towards the kids. Not saying that the majors aren't, but the minors are very big on them. If you haven't done that, go do it, and you'll thank me later. Take your kids, you know, take your wife, take your nieces and nephews. You know, they love kids at these games, so it's big. So with Major League Baseball doing that, with all the colorful bats, you know, we had pencil bats, crayon bats. You know, players had, like, you know, Bryce Harper had his children doodle on paper, and then they made it into a bat. You know, that was really, really cool. They had a lot of gloves that were custom made to be colorful. The players got to show their personalities. They got to give back to the fans, and it was really, really fun. and they set everything up for the Little League Classic on Sunday, which was a good game, by the way. And of course, they're keeping the game for the kids and trying to grow the game of baseball. So great job for Major League Baseball doing that, for bringing that back. It was a heck of an idea. You know, I know that there are people probably hearing this and saying, get to the baseball, get to the playoff picture. I get that. You know, of course, the playoff picture is going into fruition in Major League Baseball. You know, you got some tight races right now for the wild cards. You got some tight races for first place in divisions. But this was a good idea, and this was a great way to segue into the serious part of baseball where these runs are going to be made. So it was a good idea for Major League Baseball to do this. Kudos to Major League Baseball. Great job, everybody. Get well soon, Austin Riley. Hate that injury. Go Braves.
Now, as a fan of sports, or any type of sport, not just any, but we're going to elaborate on basketball for a minute since that's the next segment. As a basketball fan, you have short-term questions and you have long-term questions that could be asked throughout the course of an NBA season. One of those questions, an example of a short-term question could be, could the Boston Celtics repeat as NBA champions this coming year? Of course, winning the NBA title last year, very storied playoff run. You never know what could happen considering the fact that the draft, free agency, trades have happened, teams have re-upped, Boston's made some moves, so we don't know. We're going to figure that out when the season begins. An example of a long-term question could be, is Bronny James going to make the active roster of the LA Lakers? You know, his father is getting a little older. Bronny James's progression could be slowed, could be fast. We don't know. But that's an example of a long-term question. Could he make it to that active roster? Will he be able to lace it up with his father? Or will he get traded? Could he be a bust? We don't know. That's examples of long-term questions. Now, the question that I have could be a short-term, could be a long-term question. And that question is Ben Simmons going to play basketball anytime soon? You've been injured for 12 years, my man. Hopefully, you've done a little something to perfect that shot that we all found out that you didn't have. Now, mind you, you were an incredible basketball player in college, not really made that transition into the NBA. You had your moments, you had your bright spots, but then the injury came after that trade to the Brooklyn Nets. But I just want to know, are you going to play basketball anytime, Benno? Not because I'm a Ben Simmons fan by any stretch of the imagination, but the man's been on the show for a long time. I'm just curious myself as a basketball fan. What y'all think in the comments?
After a very stellar, wonderful showing in the Olympics from the men's and women's basketball teams coming away with gold medals, it's now time for us to get back to the pro game in America here. In the men's game, not really much to talk about. The schedule dropped for the regular season in the NBA. My thoughts on that schedule drop, it had to be done, of course. Had to be done. Got to get those ticket sales in. Like Michael Davis said on his episode of Out of Pocket last week, he wants to see the schedule so he can see when his favorite team comes in his neck of the woods, which is awesome there. Me, personally, I like to see the matchups. I'm one of those type of guys who like to see a good matchup, wants to see who is going to be going against who on certain nights. And of course, the Christmas Day games are always intriguing as well, too. There's like a full slate of basketball on for Christmas, and that's great. You've got who's Wemby going to be playing, or who is Luka going to be playing? LeBron, who is he going to be playing on what days, what nights? You got to see that. You got to be a part of that. Got to make sure that you know who is who, or if your favorite team, when they come into your town, who knows? If your favorite team is out of state like mine or like Michael Davis's, all of us have our own teams. So we'll see about that. The schedule, not really much to sneeze about. The to me, the NBA, of course, they play 82 games. It's like baseball. Baseball plays over 100 some games. So there's a lot of games to cover. You're not going to be able to watch all the games, even if you try. You might not be able to watch all the games. But the thing about it is, it's a lot of ground to cover. It's not like the NFL where you can say, okay, this person's playing this week. You got like got a day of football, with the NBA. You've got like a week of it because it's continuous games, back-to-back games. You have baseball's the same way. So, you got to map it out good. You got to plan it good. But, not really much to talk about in the men's game. But the women's game, plenty to talk about. The women had 2 weeks off because of the Olympics. So no WNBA basketball was going on while the women's team was chasing the 8th gold medal, which they secured. So the WNBA began back. And let me tell you what, it was really, really good. Very good weekend, very good slate of games. The New York Liberty becoming the first team in the WNBA this year to cement a playoff spot. They already got it set there. They're the outright first place and more than likely the favorite to win the championship this year, and rightfully so, with Breanna Stewart coming out the gate, 35 points in the first game back, playing incredibly well. Caitlin Clark, another record, going after that Indiana Fever assist record. Caitlin had over 20 points, over 10 assists. She's been playing her tail off. I think she solidified herself as WNBA Rookie of the Year, which is no disrespect to Angel Reese, who is still racking up 2010 games, double-doubles all over the place. She's great in her own right. She's been playing some good basketball, just, on the downside of it with her team. But she's still an incredible player. They're going to be chasing each other for years to come. That Magic and Bird rivalry that they have. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to it in the years to come. Asia Wilson is keeping her MVP candidacy alive, which I'm pretty sure she's got it because another record she set after coming off the Olympics. These women have played back-to-back basketball games. They played a lot of basketball, the travel, and then they go back to their teams where they go back to playing more basketball with more traveling going on. So you got to give kudos to these ladies here. They've been playing their tails off. It's been a good season in the WNBA. But the basketball almost coming to an end for the ladies, and will soon be starting for the men. So let's keep this basketball going. That's why I love August. That's why I love the fall coming into it, because the basketball is going to be going from the summer with the women right to the men. So, hey, it's like I told them on Out of Pocket. I like my basketball with a side of basketball.
The NFL preseason has added another page to Patrick Mahomes' and one mixtape highlight reel of a career, ushered in the beginning of careers for three promising young quarterbacks, Drake May, Caleb Williams, and Jaden Daniels. And we also got to see Tua Tagovailoa cook his former head coach in a war of words, where Tua called Brian Flores a terrible person, said that his coaching style made him feel less than what he was as a quarterback. It made him feel unworthy of being an NFL quarterback. Needless to say, with a new contract and a chip on his shoulder, Tua's got a lot to prove this year. But that's just another way of saying that it's safe to say the NFL season is on the way.
Now, of course, the main attraction of fall is on the horizon right now, and that is football. Now, college is gearing up, which will be happening this Saturday, and man, I can't wait. I'm excited for it. But before I get into the college football game, we got to talk about this Jim Harbaugh stuff a little bit more. Now, Coach had a change of heart and decided not to be the honorary captain in Michigan's home opener, citing that he wants to focus on his team, the LA Chargers. And you know what? I believe it. I think that's what he wants to do. Jim Harbaugh has been that type of guy that is down for his team, do anything for his team. We figured that out a little bit now, didn't we? But he's that type of guy who wants to be in the trenches. He says he wants to be there for his team. He wants to be around for his team, and he doesn't want the focus to be on him. He wants the focus to be on him and his team. So he's got that right. So I believe it. I think that's the right decision. I really think it is. Although I was looking forward to that big middle finger that Michigan was going to give the NCAA. But instead, his mother and his father are going to be the honorary captains standing in his place. Do I feel like Jim Harbaugh will get that hurrah from the Michigan crowd? Of course he will. They got him a national championship. Regardless of how you want to put it, he got him a national championship. He got it there. You know, there's still love for him in Ann Arbor. It's his alma mater. He got him a championship as a coach. So the love is always going to be there no matter what. Unfortunately, I was looking forward to seeing what was going to happen with him coming out of the tunnel with the team. But, you know, maybe we'll see it. We might not see it. But since we're talking about that, let's get on to this college football top 25, which dropped last week. Georgia, of course, being on the top, being the top seed, that 1 seed, followed by Ohio State, number 2, Oregon, Texas. Welcome to the SEC, by the way. And the new look Alabama Crimson Tide. New coach, Kalen DeBoer. How you doing? Rounding out that top 5. Now, unless you've been living under a rock for the past year or since the spring has been going on, the NCAA is going to look a little bit different this year. Remember, the Pac-12 only has 2 teams, Oregon State and Washington State being the last 2 teams. But they're going to be playing a Mountain West schedule. If I read that correctly, I think they're going to be playing a Mountain West schedule, kind of being into their conference this year. So Conference USA added Kennesaw State. That's going to up them to 10. Then the American Athletic Conference added Army, upping them to 14. Of course, the SEC going to welcome Texas and Oklahoma to make 16 teams in the SEC, arguably one of the toughest squads to play in. We want to see what Texas and Oklahoma is made of. That's going to be some very good football. But don't sleep on the Big 12 either. They added Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, Coach Prime, baby, and Utah to make 16 teams. So the Big 12 is going to be very interesting as well, too, getting those Pac-12 squads coming in for the very first year. In the Big 10, the big conference, definitely the Big 10, with Oregon, UCLA, USC, and Washington coming into play, making 18 teams in the Big 10. That is going to be interesting. And of course, you know, around my way, since I'm a Carolina fan, the ACC added Cal, SMU, and Stanford to make it an odd 17 teams. Now, as someone who has grown up with the ACC for years, known it as the Atlantic Coast Conference, watching all of these squads that I've known for a long time, North Carolina, Wake, NC State, Duke, Georgia Tech, those schools that were mainstays. Maryland went to the Big Ten in the 2000s, kind of rough there, watching them leave. But watching these other teams coming from the West Coast into the ACC, it's a different look. Do I like it? I really don't. But for the expansion of football, and we all saw this coming, this was something as a fan that you've seen for a while, with conferences going from this way to that way. And these moves were made for football. So this is exactly what they're doing. So with that being said, this is something we're going to have to get used to, is what it seems. Now, this year's national championship, of course, the playoff system has changed. It went from 4 teams to 12 teams. So with the changes to the NIL and the transfer portal, this is a new look of college football. Welcome to it. If you like it, hopefully you do. If you don't, there's going to be a lot of getting used to. So we'll see how it goes. And in other news, former Central Michigan coach Michigan coach, sorry about that, is now coaching high school football in Detroit. He's the defensive coordinator.
I'll be back.
Now, those are our sports segments for today. Now, usually I'm going to close the show out by giving some insight on a certain subject or something that happened to me during the week. But I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to end the show a little differently. I feel like today, especially nowadays, with what we're going to be seeing in the fall real soon, you know what I'm talking about. I don't have to elaborate. But I feel like a lot of us have lost touch when it comes down to having debates, being able to talk to each other when you don't see eye to eye. Some of us seem to veer off track and go the emotional route or go at the route of trying to hurt somebody with our words verbally. So I want to touch on that, but I want to touch on that in a different way. I'm also getting the idea and understanding that, with it being August, school is beginning. So that means numerous young people and some older people will be heading on to school. So why not have it a better way or a better time to take you guys to school? A place that I took you guys before. And that place, of course, is QuickHits University. Oh, hello. Welcome to QuickHits University. I'm your professor, Mr. Smith. If you're a new enrollee here at QuickHits University, welcome aboard. If you've returned for another lesson, welcome back. Today's lesson, of course, will be a brief lesson. We'll be talking a little bit about American history. So, let's get into this lesson, shall we? Now, as American citizens, we have been given inalienable rights. These rights are called the Bill of Rights. Some of those Bill of Rights: freedom of religion, right to bear arms, freedom of the press, and also freedom of speech. Let's talk about freedom of speech, shall we? Now, over the years, in this day and age, there are people who feel like their rights to free speech are being challenged. That is not the case. I know that many people believe that cancel culture is real. Many people feel like cancel culture takes away their right to say what they want. Let us explain a few things about freedom of speech. Although here at QuickHits University, we don't believe in cancel culture. We do believe, however, in understanding and respect. In this time now, as we're going into, some major decisions are going to be made in our country. There are going to be some debates. There are going to be some arguments. Many of us will not be seeing eye to eye on certain things. But that doesn't mean that respect and understanding cannot be exercised. So as we go back into talking about free speech being challenged, let us look at the core of free speech. Free speech means that you cannot be arrested for what you say. That does not mean that cruelty, disrespect, evil, hateful speech will be tolerated by anybody. If you're kicked out of a forum, told to exit a room, 86th out of a conversation, your freedom of speech rights are not being violated. These people believe that you are being belligerent and evil, and they're showing you the door. So that's what must be said about freedom of speech. Once again, make sure that when you are in an argument, a verbal quarrel with someone, think before you speak. Think of certain things such as, am I being emotional? What will come out of what I will say? Are there consequences to my actions? Is what I'm saying about the subject or about the person? Take those things under consideration when you have these verbal altercations with people. It could save your job. It could save your livelihood. It could also save your life. Now, I know many of us are going to be having these discussions not face to face, maybe over a medium such as social media. Let's take this under consideration as well. Say you're scrolling on a social media forum and you come across a post that you don't like, a post you don't agree with, someone's video talking about a subject that you don't like. The best alternative would be simply ignore it. Why is that? Because by simply ignoring it, you give it no airtime, the post doesn't grow, and the subject dies. So that means the subject that you don't like is not going to get traction from other people. If you simply say evil things about it, talk bad about the person that posted, all you're doing is showing that you have a lack of character. So with that being said, let it go. You're not weak. You're not passive. You're not letting a subject grow. You are merely not giving it any of your time, any of your words, or any of your energy. Your homework assignment is, remember, just like my last lesson, social media is a fantasy world. Go in there, have some fun, get out. There's a whole big world out there. Time for you to discover it. But piggybacking off of that as well, remember, freedom of speech is something that our forefathers fought and died for. You don't want to disgrace people who gave their blood, their lives, over a very silly and stupid argument. how would that make you or your family look? Are there any questions? Class dismissed.
Can't fall off, now they holler he'll turn, thinking I'ma sell out, talking just to feel heard. I never listen, although they say it's strictly